One thing I'll share with you guys today, it's something I shared with the Edenshire Live group. We have every weekday, we have an ongoing, available to anybody group, Edenshire Live. And in that group, we call it Edenshire for various reasons, but in that group, it's kind of like where people can just ask questions and share with each other. Not just me. I do the opening and closing, but teachers throughout the day, goddess training, herbal training, Reiki training, all kinds of things. You can learn, share, heal. It's pretty cool. But I shared a story with them, and I'll share this once more. The other day, I was driving, the hill, where is it, by Mariposa, is that what that's called? The restaurant? Yeah? So I'm heading down that hill, and a lot of things were happening at the same time, but one of them was, I'm going down the hill. This is a good cop story from my friend here who's a police officer. So I open this bag of sunflower seeds and I pour them in my mouth, except it was the bottom of the bag, so it was all just salt. So I'm like, trying to get all this salt out of them, and there's no water in the car. So I'm like, trying, and then my mouth's shriveling up from the salt. So all this is happening as I'm picking up speed down the hill, and I'm like, finally you get to the roundabout and I'm trying to navigate that. Oh my God, like, wow. All this kind of happening. And then I notice way in the back, these beautiful lights. They're colorful. I like them. Gem tone. Anyway, the reds and blues. I'm like, oh, pretty. And these two cop cars, there were two of them, chasing me. Boom, they and I see them and I'm like, well, they're far back there. It can't be for me. And I was just coasting down the hill anyway, so I wouldn't have imagined there was anything major. But in case it was for me, I pulled over. And then it was for me. So they asked me for license, which I was like, where do I put that? Then they asked for registration. I don't know where that is. I don't have that because I never get pulled over. So registration, so I'm. Where did that would be in the glove compartment, right? So I glove compartment, and there's all kinds of repair receipts and that sort of. I'm like, well, what does it look like? He's going, well, it should be. He's describing it to me to find. Then he wants proof of insurance. I'm like, what does that look like? So he's going, so you don't have anything, and you're speeding, and he goes, do you know how fast you were going? I go, no, not really. And he goes, well over double the speed limit. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I go, wow. He goes, which means I'm supposed to arrest you. And I go, well, that would be weird. That would be a weird experience, But if it is, it is. I mean, it's going to be weird, but okay. So then he goes, to the back, and then he comes back and he said, I'm going to show you what kind of a nice guy I am. I'm not going to arrest you. I said, great. That worked out. He goes, oh, yeah, we know who you are. Unity, right? I said, yeah. He said, okay. And I'm not going to ticket you either. So I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Now, I never, if a cop's going to pull me over, I don't say, I didn't speed. I don't do that. And I also don't make excuses. I was, it's like, write me up and then I'll tell you. Because I don't want to sway what you're doing. That's how I am. So he finishes, and he says, okay, so I'm not going to write you up. I said, okay, cool. Now that we're done, I said, let me tell you what happened. I told him, I was not paying attention. I was spitting this salt out of, the bag. I said, but there's one more thing. I actually had a dream that this was going to happen today. I had a dream last night. And I'm like, I know you've heard things. This is Sedona. I go, swear to God, I had a dream. So I'm sharing this profound reality. I had this dream. I had a dream that I was pulled over. I had a dream that I had been, and the whole thing. And he looks at me and he goes, but it didn't slow you down, did it? I'm like, you got me there. So grateful. I'm so grateful. And I'm grateful that happened. I'm grateful that that he was so kind. And I want you guys to remember that people are kind, especially if you are kind and have good karma. At the same time, if I would have gotten written up, I had good reason. It was an accident, but so what? If it happens, it happens. You know, if you're going to get a ticket, you're going to get a ticket. I mean, it just happens. You know, I probably get pulled over once every 10, 15 years. So I'm not an aggressive driver. I don't have, but it's not just that. It's you could be a great driver and still get pulled over. Don't worry about it. Try to go with the things that happen in life as best you can. Try not to shame and blame the cops that are trying to do what they're doing. They don't know how holy you are. They only saw you doing one thing, you know. So try to blend with it as best you can. And today I want to get to the concept of the psychology of the soul. You know, A Course in Miracles is spiritual psychology. The standard psychology means basically the study of the psyche. The mind, it's what it means. Technically, the soul, but they won't use that word anymore. So the study of the mind. But the mind can't study the mind because then you never get anywhere. Because something that's limited is already trying to analyze something else that's limited, so you never get anywhere, which is why they just keep medicating people and it doesn't work. You have to go to a higher perspective. You want to understand the mind, you need spirit, so spiritual psychology would be the answer. In religion, the closest thing you have to spiritual psychology would be Buddhism. And in terms of studies, Course in Miracles. And it's also here and there, if you look for it. Mythology even has, if you look and realize it, it's there. But it's not blatant enough. But as soon as I say the psychology of the soul, or the psychology of our inner self, the word psychology might make people think we're going to be talking about analyzing. But we're not. We just want to understand how the mind got to where it is. Sick. How the mind became ill. Well, you know, it is. We start off in this divine state with God. And then we believed we left God. We believed, you know, here we go. Heaven is all one. This is great. Everybody's feeling oneness and wholeness and basically bliss. And the children of God, we'll call it newly created, said to themselves, well, let's try this out. And we're experiencing bliss and oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And then I wonder what life would be like with anything but bliss. What if we didn't have bliss? Because the mind wanders, which is same for terminology, the mind wanders. So mind wandering came from the mind wondering what it would be like to be separate from God, which is like having a paranoia. Paranoia doesn't mean there's actually people after you. It means you think they are. Wondering what life would be like without God doesn't mean it happened. It just means you think it did. That's why it's a psychosis. It's a psychological problem. So, you know, it's like people just can't go, this is good enough. This is perfect. This is bliss. When God says in the proverbial story of Garden of Eden, you have everything you could possibly imagine. Just one caveat. There's a tree right over there, the tree of judgment, the tree of knowledge. Just don't eat from that one tree. The rest, cool. And we're like, wait, but what's in the tree? What does it do? You don't think about the tree, just everything. Okay, that's great. But what's that tree? You know, we just couldn't let it go. It's like you had the Beatles and you just had to have the Rolling Stones too. You just couldn't let great be enough, you know? So, sorry, Stones fans. So you could have just had this great thing. Well, so we say, well, I wonder what, but remember, this is not what happened. It's what we wondered would happen. Do you understand the difference? Wondering means you imagined it. So that's why it's a psychosis, because you're imagining things that aren't there. So technically, you need a spiritual psychology. That's why Buddha was saying one of his most important techniques was develop the use of your rational mind. Why the word rational? And then a bunch of intellectuals started following Buddhism because they thought it was talking about intellect. Oh, a religion for rational thinking. That's me all the way. No. The mindfulness in the actual Chinese and Indian language, mindfulness didn't mean intellectualness. It meant heartness. It meant this mind, higher mind, not the human intellect. But they left that somehow out. So this idea is that this is a psychology. This is a psychological state we're dealing with. Someone had a healthy mind, yet imagined that they could have an unhealthy mind, an unhealthy imagination. The imagination that started conjuring up what life would be without love. You know, like the song, you know, I won't live in a world without love, the old 60s tune. So it's like there's this thing. And you know, this whole universe blasts out of this one moment of wondering what life would be like. And then we fly into it because we're thinking we've done something wrong. Let's go hide. This isn't like people just say, oh, the souls, you know, and the souls wanted to experience limitation. What soul in their right mind goes, oh, this is amazing. I wonder what limitation's like. Only people with psychosis, only people who are out of their minds. So we started having mental illness on a spiritual level because of one thing. We started doubting our divinity. As soon as we doubted our divinity, our minds took on the shape of our fallen self. So now you had a sick mind. Could it have been prevented? Yes. How? Laughter. If you would have said, what would life be like without God, and knew that that was pretty dang funny, because you can't be without God. God, you know, you were taught in CCD, catechism, Bible school at 5. God's everywhere. I mean, do you remember going, really? Look, you know, thinking it's a little thing watching, you know? God's everywhere. Well, we learn that at 5. It is everywhere. Because it is everywhere. It is all that is. Not what you think you see. But it's everywhere hidden behind everything we think we see. So you can't separate from God. So technically it should have been just kind of like, wow, that was a funny one. Hey, did you hear what Joe said? No, he said, what would life be like outside of God? And everybody would laugh and it would have been done. Instead we went, uh-oh. I thought a naughty thought. You know, and that can't be good. Because in God there's only holiness. So if you did an unholy thought in a holy place, that could mean that we created unholy. We probably just ruined heaven. And then we wanted to run and hide. So we became part of the problem. We flew into the universe and became one of the symptoms of the fall. We flew into the universe, landed in little bodies, and we even pray. Now understand, this is kind of a deep psychological thing we're about to talk about here, but when people pray, it looks totally on the level. It looks totally like the right spiritual thing to do. But watch carefully. Here's what you're doing. You know, whether it's God, you know, please help my child be healthy. God, you know, please help me get my new job. Whatever your, you know, God prayers are. On a deep, you know, this may not sit well with everybody, but on a deep spiritual level, here's what we're doing. Hey, God, in case you didn't notice, I'm miserable. In case you didn't notice. And the reason the reason I'm telling God this is because if God knows how miserable I've been on the planet, he won't punish me so badly when I go home. That's what's happening. Even our prayers are trying to deal, because God's going, what are you praying for? You're everything. Try affirmations instead, affirming the truth instead of begging the false. But what we're doing subconsciously is, hey, God, you know, I mean, I'm translating here, but, you know, paraphrasing here, but, hey, God, just in case you didn't know, oh, life on earth just sucks. This is terrible. We're all sick and challenged. Economy, everything's bad. You know, like, see? So when we come home, God will have pity on us. God's going to say, wow, you people, wow. Created holy, pretended you're not holy, then prayed to me about your problems in not being holy. Just be holy again. Oh, we can't. We would be, but you know who's president? We would be, but you know the AMA. We would be, but the economy. All stories and excuses. But technically, before you go home, you got to go from being a human before divine to God goddess. And gods and goddesses don't sit around and complain. They choose. They don't wish something were happening. They choose it. So you can't pray yourself out of hell into heaven. If God, knows how miserable I am, it'll take pity. Why do you think? And if you think I'm making this up, look at the mystics who were really devoted to God. Not eating, no money, priests, nuns, mystics, abstaining. No sex. That's where the word nun came from. But anyway, so abstaining. Guys, God never said, abstain. Never happened. How would God tell you to abstain in things that God doesn't even think exists? So God's not saying abstain. We're saying it. We're saying if we abstain and we lack and we suffer enough, God's going to take pity. And it's hard for us to believe that. Some of us are, the new age, well, I don't believe God's really out to get us. Really? Then ascend now. Go ahead. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Not gone yet, are you? You know why? Because you're afraid of your light more than you are your darkness. You could snap a finger and poof, be one with all that is. Well, but I'm staying for my children. Liar. Excuses, man. You're using excuses. You're not staying for anybody. It's you. Should you judge yourself? Well, that's contrary to what we're looking for here. Forgiveness is the thing that will release it all, the whole trance. So the children of God said, what would life be like if we could leave God? And we went into a trance. We went into a dream that we could call a trance, like a mass hypnosis. Okay, we are now separate. And, now we walk around in this trance. This concept of the unholy trinity of consciousness is that we're separate, therefore flawed. And now we become afraid. You feel separate, guilty, and afraid of what's going to come. So this is what everybody goes through. Separate, guilty, and afraid. Now we live in fear. We know we live in fear on planet Earth, most of us. We live in fear, and I'm not talking about phobias like spiders or whatever. That's just a symptom. The fear is that I'm flawed. The only reason I'm afraid of snakes and spiders is because I'm flawed and they're out to get me. You could just, there is no enemy when you realize I found the enemy and the enemy is us. I just released the belief in that. Really? A germ? Get out of here. Gone. You got to be kidding me. When you're in the divine state, nothing, there is no other thing. So a germ is, what is that? Ooh, a thought of mine. A thought that would like to prove to me that, that I'm a limited, undivine being. And you're like, oh, I knew it. I don't know where this is coming from, but, it's working. So that's not the truth of God. But as long as you can blame the germ, the ex, tax man, etc., then we never wake up. It's really strange because waking up involves the uncomfortable experience of taking responsibility. Not blame. Responsibility. Those are different. Ego tells us they're the same because it doesn't want us to take responsibility. The ego knows that at the moment we start to really take responsibility, then we take responsibility for creating the ego and then would say goodbye to it. So it has to keep that from happening. Make you afraid, terrified is a better word, of taking responsibility. Because if you did, you'd say, wow, I thought the devil made me do it. Remember Flip Wilson? Right? Great guy, Flip Wilson, and the devil made me do it. That's how we live. Now, then we created systems on earth, the unholy trinity of systems, not consciousness, systems. Religion, science, and politics. These things that are supposed to be watching out for you. And they think they're different. We're not like them. Science, total disbelief in God. Everything's got a rational explanation, blah, 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 blah. Trust your senses. That's all you should trust. If you can't see it, it's not real. The exact opposite of reality. So science says we're going to get these people addicted because the ego is fragmenting into three, this unholy trinity, and one of them being science. Only trust your senses, which is the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. Trust your senses. Why? Because if all is only real if I can touch it, the invisible, which is now, right now to us, God seems invisible, doesn't exist. Perfect. Perfect. The ego used science to make people say God doesn't exist. Thank God religion's not like that. It's exactly what religion does. Don't get too close to God. You can't have personal experience. You just come and we'll talk about it every Sunday. Like a history lesson. Genesis 3:5 says, Matthew 6:10 says, and it never says, you are a holy child of God, say the following, and have an experience with God. They just tell you historically. That's why when Jesus rolled into town, walked up to a podium, they said, oh, he's a wonderful master, you can tell. He said, Master, would you teach for us? Sure. Unrolls the scroll. The kingdom is at hand. And they're like, so nice. He memorized that, like we did. Kingdom of heaven is at hand. He rolls it back and says, and I tell you, today this is fulfilled. They're like, we must have not heard that correctly. We were, thinking about the chariot races going on today, and we were betting on those. So can you elaborate? Yes. The kingdom of God is here and now, if you so choose it. Now they're like, who's going to drag him outside first? Let's stone him. Stone him. Like in the movies, they always have a British accent. Stone him. They drag him outside, and they say they're going to throw him over a cliff. Over a cliff. He shakes himself loose and walks away. You know what that's called? Mastery. When someone knows and knows that they know, your little actions don't affect them. They just boom, shake off, walk through. He was using a Jedi mind trick on them. You will not need to throw me over the cliff. We will not need to throw you over the cliff. The Jedi mind trick. Anyway, but do you understand that why they did that was what? What did he say? Did he tell them some gossip about their sisters? No. You know what he said? God is available to you at any moment, if you so choose. And that made them want to kill him. Kill him for saying God's here. God's here, as close as your own heart. You would kill somebody for such a thing? To this day, they may not any longer throw you over a cliff for it, at least not in some countries, but they will hate you. They'll ostracize you. They'll judge you. I have had so many students and friends of mine. Well, Michael, I found you because, I had some experiences. I was of this religion, that religion, and I had some experiences. I went to my pastor, my minister, my priest, whatever they are, and they told me I needed medication, or they told me it was my imagination, or they told me it was the devil. To me, that's heartbreaking. To hear children, or children of God, whether they're young or older, go to what seems to be leaders and then shamed. But there's a purpose to that. They're shaming because they're saying, you cannot, will not, must not have direct connection. Why? Because we don't. Because we don't. How dare you? You can't have what we don't have. Well, then why don't you have it? Why? Because deep down, they don't want it. Because they're still more afraid of their light than their darkness. They still believe what the ego has told them in the beginning of time, that God's out to get you. So conjure up all kinds of reasons and ways to stay away from peace. And that's what this is. When I'm describing this today, we don't just have this happen billions of years ago. We don't just have it when a start of a religion or start of science, empirical science. We have this every single day that we choose not to forgive. This whole thing is repeating itself again every day. Every day that I want to decide that I'm flawed and you're flawed, I'm repeating the same thing at the beginning of time. The same thing that happened at the beginning. So it's kind of like coming to a place of saying, you know what? It's what A Course in Miracles calls this tiny mad idea. This tiny crazy idea that the ego would convince us that we're separate and flawed. And then should be afraid of God's wrath. And even if you say, well, the God wrath, that sounds so Old Testament, sounds so, put it in terms of psychology. There's a part of us that's afraid of our shadow, not wanting to look at our shadow self, our ego self. You're afraid of your own shadow, that old saying. So take a look at it, but not in terror. Look at it with an understanding. I remain as God created me. So I actually have the ability to look at my shadow, my ego, and not be terrified or hurt by it. How could it hurt me? How many times have you been hurt by your shadow, really? God, my leg hurts. Why? My shadow kicked me. It doesn't make sense. I'm so hungry. Why didn't you eat? My shadow took my bowl of food away. It doesn't make sense. But we live afraid of our own shadow. Now you can say, well, he's using a weird metaphor. No, because everything is a projection. When a person's rude to me, they're a projection of my shadow self. The low self-worth in you is making me think I'm unlovable. So what do I need to do? Get behind me, Satan. Meaning, put it in perspective. Well, you don't have power to take my goodness away. First of all, God created it, which means it's eternal. Everything God creates is eternal. Thank God. Right? So it's eternal. So what God created, which is me, in its image, which is holy, means that I remain holy. That's all nice, but I don't see it anymore. That's because the unholy Trinity. Science tells you you're wrong to believe in anything you can't see. That's messed up. Religion's telling you you cannot have direct experience. And last but not least, politics. Do I need to explain that one? Find some holy politics. It's strange. I think there's really beautiful, well-intended politicians here and there. But those are here and there. That's a challenging place to be. However, anybody that is in their heart center and trying politics, any form, whether it's mayor or whether it's, just simply doing some activist work, God bless them because they're trying to anchor light in the strangest of places. The light has to come everywhere in this world. Someone's got to bring it to politics. I'm not saying you're going to fix all those things. I'm saying you hold the light till one day the light grows so much there's no darkness left in the room. You can't fix the thing. You can bring light to it and the thing disappears. Politics as we know it are already disappearing. And when things tend to disappear, it's like when a person's dying, often death involves aches, discomforts, pains, inconveniences. It's the same with politics or science. They're already completely impotent. They're not able to do anything. They've never fixed anything eternally, not one of them, not science or anything else, because they're just of this world. You try to get a little better politician this time, a little better scientific discovery. They still go nowhere. No amount of science, even though a lot of New Age people still go, wow, science, it's a new science, they're getting metaphysical. I understand that. They're still not going to get you anywhere because they're all still fear-based. There are people ridiculed when they see UFOs and tell their superiors, as they call them. Doesn't sound too superior. Okay? So this world wants to shoot down everything that's real. As simple as a child going to their mother saying, Mom, someone abused me, and the mom says, well, get over it. Or it couldn't have happened. Or what did you do to cause that? That's the same as science, religion, and politics. It's just twisted. So get upset about it and try to fix it at that level, or say, wait a minute. Cut away from that and say, I would rather start with nothing and build reality than to be given false versions of some things that get me nowhere. Choose again. So being able to say, and it takes courage to be able to say, it's not of this world, this courage, this place, this faith. It can't be of this world. So to be able to go to this place inside and say, this is not something the world supports, but I believe in it. And just follow that. Now, I'm not saying every little insight or dream that is accurate, it's always perfect, it's always of God. No. You have to develop those muscles. You're going to miss something here and there. And the more loose those muscles are, the more immature they are based on what? Your mental health. If you're codependent, you're going to mess up the guidance coming to you. If you're a flaming addict, it's going to mess up your guidance. Wait, I'm sensing I should have a drink. That doesn't make sense. You can justify anything. No, I can even smell the liquor. That must mean it's definitely coming from God. You can justify anything. God told me to go find my soulmate. You're saying to me that God just told you you're incomplete and you need to go find your other half. Really? Does that sound like God? Hello, my beloved incomplete child. I'm sorry that you're so flawed, but guess what? Somewhere out there in Madagascar is your soulmate. If only you could take a trip there, you might find them. And they're still going to be annoying, like other human beings. So it's not going to go well no matter what. You think you're going to meet somebody and go, oh, this is just perfect. We are in love and we complete each other's sentences and we don't argue. You just described codependence. We finish each other's sentences. You have a narcissist as a mate. I'm going to finish your sentences. You just start them and I'll be there and I'll let you know what you're about to say. It's kind of weird and twisted. No offense to those of you who are looking for your soulmate. Too late, right? We kind of shut that down. No. Guys, you can only create what you are. If you want to find soulmates, do you want soulmates that tell you you're incomplete and that they'll complete you? Or would you like to find a soulmate that mirrors that you are complete? Which one would you like? First or second? Second, good. Well, a few of you said second anyway. The others should attend more often. Okay? So listen though. The second one is the one we want. The first one is the one people are compelled to do. Is that bad? No. It just tells us where we are in here. If I'm still willing to sacrifice my completion to start believing instead that I'm flawed and start affirming that by finding someone who I think will complete me, fine. But that's a statement of where I am spiritually. How evolved do I feel when I recognize, geez, I'm actually still looking for my other half? Is it wrong to? No, but it's a statement of where I believe I'm at. Make sense? Sorry. All this talk about soulmates, I started getting excited. So we're all looking for our soulmates. Where are you, my other half? So heaven has only ever insisted that we're holy beings. It never said you're flawed. But the Garden of Eden, I remember, I read it, Garden of Eden, they said, and God casts you out. And there's pictures, the angel and Adam and Eve walking out, with this, like Charlton Heston kind of dramatic, in those old days, he used to do all the dramatic movies, right? So you're leaving the Garden of Eden, and there's the woman leaving, and the man's hands in his face. Shame and guilt, man. They got hit with shame and guilt. Why? Because they ate from the tree of knowledge, which meant the tree of judgment. Knowledge meaning I know what's right and wrong, and I'm going to start judging things. Starting with moi. So Adam and Eve weren't cast out. There was no angel that said, get out. It was, we are leaving holy consciousness now because we judged ourselves. What seems like, sounds like, and what's written is that an angel cast them out. They're out based on vibrational level of consciousness. We're no longer in Edenic consciousness because we've judged ourselves. So they're leaving. See? That whole imagery. But I'm saying it was never God because it's all a thinking issue. It's all belief systems. We believed we separated. We believed, therefore, that we were flawed and felt ashamed. And we believed that we would need to be punished for our actions. To this day, we're now living in that psychosis. I remember when I was like 4 or something like that. I remember we were out in the front lawn And my older brother, who did a lot of things like this, but the clouds, kind of cloudy, and there was a bright moon, but the moon happened to beam through enough to where there was this beautiful light on the lawn coming through the clouds, right? This beautiful light. And he said, quick, Michael, back up. Why? Back up, because if you stand in that light, you'll be killed. And I'm like, no, sir. You think I'm kidding? Go stand in it then. No, I'm not going to stand. So you believe, you're afraid. No, I'm just not in the mood to stand. I did all the things kids do. He instantly had me convinced that that's going to kill me. One time he said, hey, battery, put it to your tongue. I'm like, why? Oh, it's cool. It's okay. And it buzzed. He goes, wait, it didn't buzz, did it? Yeah. Oh, God, Michael. Are you sure? Well, yeah, like a little. I don't know, man. We should probably tell mom and dad because that means you're going to die. He still wishes I was dead, but it's like the torment. And I'm actually, really? What am I going to do? I don't know, but I'm going to get in trouble if you tell mom and dad. So let's keep it a secret now. He changed his mind. It was weird, but in a state of mind, we simply decided to believe we're flawed. The light's going to kill us. The zapping, we're already dead. All these bizarre things. I got mine later, about 20 years old. He's knowing I'm already into interpreting dreams for people, all this kind of stuff. He calls me one day. Hey, Michael, yeah. Listen, man, I had this weird dream last night. Can you interpret it for me? And whatever it was, I dreamt it, and I'm thinking, this is good, man. This is good. Oh, really? And you dreamt that? Yeah, and I don't know what it meant, but it seemed like it was very important. It meant you're going to die. Boom. Hang up. No. I didn't say that. It's not that it didn't occur to me, but I didn't say that. So, in this world, even when other people make you feel flawed, that's the first problem. When others and outers, when others make you feel flawed, very sad, very inappropriate for them to do that. Whether they did something to you, said something to you, acted a certain way, it's very hurtful, it's very selfish. And yet, the only reason they got through to us is because our own doubts already. When you know they can't say or do anything, right? Think about it. It's like you're immune. You're just immune. I shared this story before, but Mr. Universe competition was won every year by a guy named Lou Ferrigno. And then one year, a new guy was kind of up and coming, and his name was Schwarzenegger. And Arnold said to Lou, just before they go out to do the competition, hey, Lou, good to see you again, man. Hey, are you okay? Lou, yeah, I'm fine. Really? Because you look. He started messing with his mind. He actually told him, you look sick. And he started believing it and didn't win the competition because he was off a little. It's not right for people to do that, but why are you listening? When you know you want to marry somebody, you feel like you're in love, and your mother says, no, you have to marry this other guy, I like him more. Tell her to go marry him. Don't listen. It doesn't mean she's right, she's wrong. It doesn't. The point is, where are you in this? I want to be a florist. No. You have to be an accountant. That's what we've done for 3 generations. And you all committed suicide. Like, I don't want to be an accountant. You were all miserable. You were wealthy when you killed yourself, but, I don't want to do that. I want to be a florist. You have to give yourself permission. And if you were a florist and you decided you don't like it, it doesn't make enough money or whatever, then you'll decide something different. But it should be how you feel. Where, the old saying, follow your bliss. So what is my bliss? God, you don't even know what that compass is anymore. You don't even know what it feels like to go in the direction, let alone how to find that direction. It's very sad. You got to find the bliss. Well, I don't know what bliss feels like. Okay. Joy? No, still too foreign. Happiness? Any word that you can use as your compass word to say something taking me closer to goodness or God. And follow that as best you can. It will not be correct 100% of the time because we have filters. You know, you could hear guidance to move. I need to move to Montana. You might have been hearing move to higher consciousness and you thought it meant north. So seriously. Time for you to get married. Oh, okay, let's see. You know, are you available? When in fact it was telling you to become joined in your own masculine and feminine self. We can still misinterpret, but at least you're better off trying, showing, telling the universe, I do follow the compass. When it knows you're serious, it starts doing a better job showing up to give you right direction. When you say, it doesn't really matter, it says, okay, fine. Nothing seems coherent anymore. Live loose consciousness, and you're going to have that showing up in your life. Your guidance will be very sporadic. If you want, I'm ready for that doorway over there, home. Then find the compass to that doorway. What is the doorway? The doorway is God or heaven. How do we know God or heaven? A feeling. What kind of feeling? Love, peace, joy, oneness. And then follow it. Follow the feeling. That famous saying, follow your bliss, by Joseph Campbell. A really great story, and I've shared it, I know, somewhere, but one time I was speaking, it's about 20 years ago, and I was speaking at a Unity, and I used that reference, follow your bliss, and like I just did. After the service, this old woman walks up to me. She had an assistant. You know, hi, I just had to meet you. And I said, oh, nice to meet you. She said, I really love that you mentioned Joseph Campbell and follow your bliss. I said, isn't that a beautiful concept? Follow your bliss. She said, yes, he was my husband. And I was like, wow. You know, let me sit down. You can talk now. You know, follow your bliss. Follow bliss. Follow love. You know, there's nothing else. Our patron saints, Earth, Wind, and Fire over there, the poster, right? Earth, Wind, and Fire. What's the saying? You know, there's a song in the album, That's the Way of the World. A song called It's All About Love. And that's what it's all about. So the solution, no matter what we talk about, challenge or whatever, the solution is love. Oh, you mean like love? No, wait. We better add another word. Love in action is known as forgiveness. So it's forgiveness. Forgiving who? The group of people that are doing things, sure, forgive them. But also forgive the person that let them get to you. Did that make sense? Forgive others, but eventually forgive yourself. One day, you come to the place where you realize, I'm so chill. I'm just so that there's nobody left to forgive. I did all my forgiveness with others whenever I could, should, and all that. Then I learned to forgive myself. Wow, after the forgiveness of others and self, I rest in a place called bliss, God, because I never lost that. But when I ate from the tree that taught me to judge, I needed to now forgive the judgment, which is why there's a second tree in the garden that nobody talks about. It's the tree of life, which is known as the tree of forgiveness. The tree of knowledge of judgment, the tree of life, which is forgiveness. Forgiveness is what releases you and I, Adam and Eve, from the trance, from the curse of being sent out of the garden, back to Eden through love and forgiveness. Please take a few centering breaths. Just briefly allow through your mind anything today that made sense to you. Anything that made sense. Let it be yours then. Not what you heard. Let it become yours. About reality, illusion, love, forgiveness, religion, science, whatever feels right, it's yours now. And when you share it, you're channeling to whomever you're sharing it with. Don't quote Michael, just own it and it's yours between you and God. And those unholy trinities, such as the one in consciousness, was important for us to hear again. We thought we separated and we became flawed. We felt flawed and guilty and ashamed. And then we became afraid. And what did that unholy trinity create? It's called time. In the past, I separated. In the present, I live in fear of the future, which is going to bring me hardship. Think about this. Always afraid. Why? The past, present, and future are all held hostage by the ego. In the past, I fell. In the present, I feel ashamed and guilty. And now I'm afraid of my future. Even what we call karma. But what if the past, present, and future is a blip of imagination that was like putting on virtual reality glasses that we now are taking off? What if now there's no past, no false version of the present, and no future? We're more addicted to those than to releasing those. But in this moment, we all say collectively as well as individually, Father, Mother, God, all that we once thought that we could separate, that we could need to feel ashamed, and that we would be afraid of the future. How could that be? Holy children of God, afraid of the future. It's impossible. And I refuse to believe in it any longer. And if I don't choose the opposite, which is my holiness, then this other will come back. So I say no. I choose to accept my holiness. You have the power, Holy Mother, Divine Mother, Holy Spirit of God. You have the power. Of myself I am nothing. You show me who I am. You descend into my heart, soul, and being. You remind me of my true power that I once surrendered when I said, I wonder what life's like to be separate. I gave away my power. But I can't give it away. I didn't create it. It's not mine to give. It's God's gift to me. And it's there forever. So I take back my power and reclaim my divinity. My power is my free will, and I use it to claim my divinity. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. This is not hopeful. This is not prayerful. This is a fact. It's the truth of God, and it cannot change. The only sneaky thing that could throw it off, I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. The only thing that could keep that from being true is if I allow myself to believe otherwise. That I or anyone else, despite their behaviors, is less than holy. Then it throws it all out again. There is no being, no matter how horrendous their behavior, no being that is outside the love of God. And I give thanks that this will never change. And so it is. Thanks, guys. And thank you so much, guys, for making the sacred services what they are. Very beautiful, but very powerful. And I appreciate that we hold each other in such space. Love, support, all right? So we center into a state of gratitude first. Just this beautiful, expansive gratitude. I'm grateful I can feel everyone around the world that's watching. Even if they watch a year from now, this same service, it's still now. We open our hearts to feel this wonderful, expansive light of God. We give thanks that we're part of expanding that light. And we give thanks for the choices we've made to be right here, right now. The light of God surrounds us.
We are the light of God.
The love of God enfolds us.
We are the love of God.
The power of God protects us.
We are the power of God.
And the presence of God watches over us.
We are the presence of God.
Wherever we are, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Beautiful, delicious. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you online. God bless you all. Bye-bye.